Chapter 8 of the third book shows Bitzer aiming to capture Tom and take him to justice, while the circus folk manage to get Tom away. So it shows Gradgrind again moving away from the utilitarianism represented by Bitzer and towards this much more emotional, much more imaginative approach represented by Sissy and the circus folk. There's a great bit, about 5 lines down into the chapter on page 264 where Mr. Gradgrind says, Bitzer, have you a heart? Okay, in other words, how can you do this? How can you take my son away and ruin our family? Bitzer's reply, the circulation, sir, couldn't be carried out on without one. No man acquainted with the facts established by Harvey relating to circulation of the blood can doubt that I have a heart. So he answers with an entirely factual answer about what a heart is in terms of your anatomy, not in terms of what it is in terms of emotion. So it represents a couple of things. It shows how far Gradgrind has changed, that now he can understand that a heart is much more than just an organ in the body. It represents much more. But I think Dickens ironically ends at this point where Gradgrind started. He started with this big monologue from Gradgrind saying we only want facts, we only want to understand, you know, the facts of the human body and the facts of the world. And then here we get his own word used against him. So Dickens at the end of the novel comes back sort of full circle really to show how Gradgrind's mistakes have really set the way for what's happened to him here. That's referred to again halfway down page 264. We're told they stood looking at each other, Mr. Gradgrind's face as white as the pursuers. Obviously Gradgrind's face is white for a very different reason, because he's so worried. But again, I think Dickens is really highlighting the cause and effect. It's Gradgrind's schooling and Gradgrind's system that has made Bitzer able to do that. And then Bitzer explains right at the bottom of page 264 about why he's doing it. He says, I have no doubt whatever that Mr. Bounderby will then promote me to young Tom's situation, and I wish to have his situation, sir, for it will be a rise to me and will do me good. So Bitzer's decision isn't because of justice, it's because of his own wish to advance himself. So again, it's a utilitarian view, it's a view of self-interest, and Gradgrind espouses throughout the novel that if everybody looks after themselves, then society will be a better place, and here Dickens lays bare that it totally won't. Gradgrind challenges him, top as 265, and again Bitzer's reply shows again this utilitarian view. He says, I'm sure you know that the whole social system is a question of self-interest. That's Dickens directly attacking utilitarianism, the idea that everyone needs to look after themselves. Dickens is very clearly showing us here that that is not the answer. Bitzer goes on, I was brought up in that catechism when I was very young, sir, as you are aware. Okay, so again remind us that the Gradgrind schooling is what's allowed Bitzer to be like this now. Gradgrind sort of tries to appeal on his sense of pity, saying, you know, I've schooled you. Just after the halfway point, Bitzer answers, my schooling was paid for, it was a bargain, and when I came away, the bargain ended. So again, Dickens is using that economical language, the language of trade, to show how a society that's based purely on that is totally let down. You know, Bitzer and Gradgrind are existing purely in terms of economy and facts, and not in terms of emotion. Dickens sort of adds in the next sort of little paragraph on page 265. Gratitude was to be abolished, and the virtues springing from it were not to be. Every inch of the existence of mankind from birth to death was to be a bargain across the counter. Dickens' narrator ironically chips in there and reminds us that that's how utilitarianism works. And with that reference to birth to death, I think there's that little harking back to Stephen Blackpool, who in death sort of followed this star and was also almost escaped from the system. But Stephen Blackpool made the same point, that from birth to death, everybody's life is just run as though it's an economy. Dickens again very directly attacking that system. We're told on page 266 Sleary's come up with a plan, and we're not told exactly what it is, but at the halfway point we're told Sissy glanced at him with great attention, nor did she in her own breast misunderstand him. As they were all going out again, he favoured her with one slight roll of his movable eye, desiring her to linger behind. It's a great moment there. Again, it's a look of silence between Sleary and Sissy. So again, Sissy's silence used to her advantage. Again, Sissy's understanding what's going on. And it's Sleary's movable eye that attracts her and sort of says, look, I've got a plan here. Now, again, you know, Dickens has drawn attention all the way through that Sleary's got two eyes. One is fixed and stays still. The other one sort of moves around. Dickens is using that as a metaphor to show Sleary's view is less fixed than Gradgrind's. He's able to see a more interesting view of life, and this is what allows Tom then to escape. That look between them, this movable eye, allows this plan to be sort of borne out. So that symbol of Sleary's movable eye is really significant, representing how actually he's got far more interesting knowledge and far more valuable knowledge than somebody like Gradgrind, who's far more fixed. And then on page 267, Sleary reveals that basically the plan was that Victor was held up by the dancing horse that kept him, and then the dog that ran around and rolled over Bitzer. So again, ironically, it's these two circus animals, the horse and the dog, that have allowed Tom to escape. You know, and again, Dickens is deliberately using those symbols of the circus that Gregor disapproved of throughout the first book in the third book to show that actually they are what allows Tom to escape, just in the same way that Sissy is the one who's given the Gregor's new strength. On page 268, about 5 or 6 lines down, Sleary says, "Squire, you don't need to be told that dogs is wonderful animals." He's referring here obviously to the dog that allows Bitzer to be sort of held here, but also to Merrylegs, the dog that was the Sissy's father, that he says comes back to the circus to die. Again, referring to the loyalty of this dog that is stuck by its master all the way through. And again, Dickens is almost taking us back, like he did with the birds, with the reference to On a Sunday when Stephen Blackpool's trapped down the old hell shaft, and the birds are singing even though it's a Sunday. Dickens is taking us back to animals and to the natural world to say, you know, we need to sort of abandon these systems and just get back to what is natural to humans, you know, and just be good to each other. And that reference to the dog, I think, reminds it to us. And then Sleary basically explains, you know, that his values at the bottom of page 269, about 5 lines from the bottom. He says, "People must be amused. They can't be always learning, nor yet they can't always be working. They aren't made for it. You must have us square." And I think that Dickens is giving a really clear view through Sleary. Sleary is an entertainer, so is Dickens, you know, he's an author who's very popular to the masses, and I think Dickens is directly making that point through Sleary, that people like him are needed. People can't always work, people must have their minds and their imaginations developed, and I think Dickens contextually is making this real case for popular authors like himself. He says right at the end, "I never thought before," said Mr. Sleary, putting his head at the door again, saying that I was so much of a cackler. And remember, Dickens essentially is a cackler himself. He would perform, he would read his works out. Dickens saw himself very much as a cackler, and he makes that very, very clear right at the end of the chapter, that him and Sleary are sort of similar. And so, just like Sleary, Dickens is making the case for popular entertainment, making the case against facts. And I think with Sleary's sort of two eyes, I think that's sort of a metaphor for what Dickens is doing as an author, really, because he's exposing the system, but he's also sort of looking around it and looking to the future and looking to the problems that this might cause through things like revolution, and trying to find more imaginative ways of putting things right. So that is chapter 8 of the third book.